pleasure of announcing Jim Garrison as our next speaker. Jim Garrison is one of my mentors, and so I'm really happy that you're here. He is the founder and president of Ubiquity University, which is a globally disruptive online education program that is available at low cost to people everywhere. Very exciting. He's also was the founding president of Wisdom University, the Gorbachev Foundation, State of the World Forum, and the author of 7 books. And he's here to help us frame the historical context for why we're here talking about women, power, money, and politics. Jim Garrison.
Hello, everyone. Samantha, it's always a pleasure. And I don't know whether T-Bird is still here, but that was the most extraordinary sounds from a flute that I believe I've ever heard. I didn't know someone could do that with a flute. So T-Bird, thank you so much. The directive from Samantha was to talk about the civilizational context of women, money, power, and politics. And I had 10 minutes. As a recovering intellectual, that's a real challenge, but I'll do my best, and if you don't mind, I'll talk fast. Because I believe that, as Betsy just indicated, and Jennifer, and T-Bird, and Samantha, all of us know we're in an extraordinarily potentiated moment in time. When we are both being weighed in the balances of history, and what we do matters at a global level. And in the few minutes that I have, I would like to set forth what I believe are the shaping forces that are coming together in this time that both inform the magnitude of the crisis that we're in and point the direction of the solutions we can offer. I believe that there are four megatrends, 2 of which are negative and 2 of which are positive. The most fundamental megatrend that I believe is going to shape the future of human society is the escalating effects of climate change. All of you know the facts, so I will simply state the urgency and underscore what scientists around the world are saying, that if we do not solve this, not only is human civilization at stake, but the human species, along with a majority of the other species on this earth. We have unleashed the 6th great extinction in planetary history, and we may be part of it. This is happening within a larger context of what I would call hypercomplexity. If you look at global affairs, different events are popping up in different sectors. And whether it's ISIS in the Middle East, or Ebola in West Africa, or icebergs falling off of the ice shelf in Greenland, little events everywhere are affecting everything everywhere. And the global situation has gone beyond the capacity of human comprehension. We are literally caught up in that which we no longer understand. Now, in the face of this, and this is the second megatrend, one would think that our governments, the captains of industry, would be doing everything they can to solve this problem. But what are they doing? They're building national security states. Another documentary I would recommend to all of you is Laura Poitras's Citizen 4, the documentary on Edward Snowden. The construction of national security states is designed not only to aggregate mega data on every individual in the world that is using any kind of electronic communication, but to shut down the very capacity for protest that is necessary to alert the world to the crisis that we're in. We're the first generation in history to move beyond any notion of personal privacy. And once privacy is gone, freedom, liberty evaporates. So climate change and hypercomplexity and the construction of national security states, in my judgment, are the two negative megatrends that are impacting everything and everybody in the world.
Unless we become fearless in our transparency.
Well put.
What?
The third, unless we become transparency,
Unless we become
fearless in our transparency.
Peerless. P-E-R-L-E-S-S. Peerless.
Peerless in our transparency. Thank you. The third megatrend, completely ironically, is that we're not in this crisis because we don't have solutions. There are technological solutions for every single problem we face, and many of them have been around for decades. Renewable energy could easily and efficiently and cheaply replace fossil fuels. There are mushrooms that can eat up toxic waste dumps, even nuclear radiation. Our crisis is not that we don't have solutions. Our crisis is that we're not using solutions that are already here. But the technology to solve our problems is replete around the world. Which leads to the fourth megatrend that I believe characterizes this conference and is really the place that I would like to pause and focus some deeper thought. When Betsy said that it has been the destiny of women to emerge at this time on a tragic landscape, I believe that's one of the truest statements of the historical moment. And I would like to set forth my perception, my view, that I believe that at the deepest level, what happened in the 20th century was the demise, the denouement, the final hours of Western civilization and the patriarchal forms that have characterized our civilization with increasing toxicity over the last 5,000 years. I agree with Spengler in his great work published in 1926 that what we were witnessing 100 years ago was the decline of the West. I believe that Hiroshima and the Holocaust were the death knells of a civilization that had lost its vitality. I believe that the assassinations of John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy were the final symbolic statement that the one country that could have solved the problem, instead of solving the problem, cut off the very creative leadership that was seeking to birth a whole new inspirational vision of human and national possibility. So we, I believe, should internalize that not only are we in a toxic landscape, we are coming alive in the death knell of an entire system that has built up for thousands of years and has collapsed, as Spengler said, of its own moral turpitude. Till finally, it began to consume itself. Humanity is predating on humanity, and that is the condition set of our time. And yet, in this moment, like dandelions pushing up through the concrete, the life force began to work in an extraordinary way in 4 different but interrelated dimensions. The first and the most foundational, I believe, has been the liberation of women. And I believe that there's a relationship between Hiroshima and the liberation of women, between the Holocaust and the equalization of the genders. I don't think that that was a historical accident. I believe that that was a historical synchronicity. It was the way life, Gaia, in the midst of that toxic landscape, is starting to redress the balances. The second trend, equally fundamental, I believe, another little dandelion, has been the equalization of our sexuality. Never before have women been so universally liberated, and never before anywhere have we experienced as we have in the last 30 to 40 years, culminating in only the last few years, where gays and lesbians and bis and trans and all of human sexuality has burst forth in all its splendor. I believe that's the life instinct of humanity seeking to re-quicken itself.
And children.
Number 3, and again, interrelated, is the rise of civil society. We all know Paul Hawken. There are literally millions of people and groups just like us all over the world. And actually, it's a great comfort to know that virtually every conceivable human issue has got not one or a dozen, but hundreds, and in some cases thousands of NGOs that are working passionately on that particular issue. And again, civil society really burgeoned in the aftermath of Hiroshima and the Holocaust in the last 50 years. And finally, I believe that what we have been witnessing in an equally fundamental way is the separation, the liberation of spirituality from religion. And I would submit to you, often we talk about we have to move from fossil fuels to alternative and clean technologies and energies. I believe that it is equally true that we need to move from the axial religions, from the Abrahamic religions, from Judaism, from Christianity, from Islam, from Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, all the major religions of the human civilizational experiment over the last several thousand years, into the kind of spirituality that is based not on transcendence, not on dogma, not on subordination, but on the earth, on Gaia. And that is that 4th megatrend. The women the sexual freedom, civil society, and an earth-based spirituality that I believe, like dandelions coming through the concrete, are life's way of answering the very toxicity that has been spewed wantonly, rapaciously, gluttonously across this world. All of this is important. And as Samantha indicated, my little work in this vast tapestry of dandelions, these fields of dandelions, is to take up what, in my view, is the most critical challenge facing all of us. And that is, how do we catalyze a change of consciousness at a mass level? We're letting climate change and hyper-complexity spin out of control. We're constructing national security states. We're not implementing technologies that could... Why? Because we're caught in Einstein's box. We're trying to solve the problem with the consciousness that produced the problem. And that's why what Betsy said is fundamentally true. We're not here to jump into the pot and get mixed. Our challenge at the deepest level of history is to transcend and include, but to stop at nothing less than a fundamental transformation of values and politics and money, because nothing less is going to suffice. And what we're seeking to do through Ubiquity University is to build a global platform based on the living universe, not based on scientific materialism, but based on the living universe within an integral framework that honors the interiors as well as the exteriors, and allow for faculty, for teachers to come in and to teach this new consciousness personified by this conference all over the world. Because the most fundamental thing I know as a father is that the young people coming up are going to take the hit of everything that we have left undone. And so the preparation of this next generation, how we make it possible for them to not only navigate through the escalating turbulence that is surely coming, but to thrive, to prosper with their peers around the world in making a difference. I believe that for me, within the context of all these dandelions, is what I feel the most urgent necessity to do. My friends, my 10 minutes is up. So I would like to leave you with an image and a poem. The image is from my good friend Paul Ray, the great sociologist that did all the research on the cultural creatives. And it's also comforting to know that, according to Paul Ray, 1/3 of the American public actually agrees with us. 1/3 of the public in Europe and in Japan and the cosmopolitan cities around the world agree with us. The critical problem is how we reach a critical mass around the value systems that is already the moral majority. Paul says, and in this I take great hope, that when great change comes, it doesn't come incrementally. It comes with catastrophic force. It comes, he says, like a hockey stick. And what happens when the crisis deepens is that there's accumulation of quantitative integers of change, like this little conference. And from the surface, you can't tell that anything's happening. And then all of a sudden, there's a major crisis in the system. And what bursts up are all the efforts, unnoticed, over time, that seize the moment, and the transformation is enacted. And the next step in human evolution takes place. That's us. That's our calling. And within that context, I would just like to leave you with what I think is my favorite poem from Rainer Maria Rilke, 1899. Many of you know this, I'm sure. He said that time and again in history, some special people wake up. They have no ground in the crowd. They move to broader laws. They carry strange customs with them and demand room for bold and audacious action. The future speaks ruthlessly through them. They change the world. Again and again in history, some special people wake up. They have no ground in the crowd. They move to broader laws. They carry strange customs with us. They demand room for bold and audacious action. Why? Because the future is speaking ruthlessly through them. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, even though the hour is late and the darkness seems to be transcendent, I can say to you this morning, we will change the world.